Welcome, Tuesday night of another IndyCar race week. We're going under the lights Sunday night from not really St. Louis, but the east side of St. Louis and Madison, Illinois. Tony Donohue, Kyle Cuthbertson with you. No David Land. He's off at his second home in France, the 24 hours. Coming up, he's excited for that. You can check out all of his work on the David Land YouTube channel as well as social media. But Kyle and I have you covered for the next hour, talking so much when it comes to motorsports, as it's hard to believe we're almost halfway through the month of June. IndyCar Sunday night from Worldwide Technology Raceway. A busy schedule for IndyCar. We learned Formula One schedule for next year. I was a part of an Indy NXT test yesterday. There was a lot to discuss. And of course, we welcome your interaction here on Unverified. So send us your comments, questions, concerns as we get ready for yet another IndyCar race, this time under the lights on Fox on Sunday evening. Kyle, welcome in. Exciting time. We know the Pacers are playing tomorrow night. Coming off of a NASCAR weekend, I saw Denny Hamlin win up in Michigan. But welcome to the show. You and I tonight, so we're going to have a hell of a time.
Yeah, it's just you and I. No Dave. Dave's out in France. I've enjoyed waking up every day and seeing what Dave has been doing because he's on a bit of a different time zone. That's been fun. Pacers play tomorrow. I'm about to go to Wisconsin. And I think you're about to go to St. Louis. So I'm going to be in the wrong racetrack a week early, but I will be there next week. This week we're in a new. It looks cleaner. As you can tell, we've had to do this without Dave. We did it. The children got it done without old Dave. And we got Tony a microphone today. It's not sounding too great right now, Tony. You got to turn it down a little bit. Because every time whenever Tony starts going into show mode, he talks a little bit. You're just a little bit louder than when you are.
A little bit louder. Well, we automatically look cleaner without David on this show. But we've got a lot to talk about. So are you just spending the next week and a half up in cheese country, up in the dairy farms of Wisconsin, or what does your schedule look like with Kart Chaser and then obviously IndyCar next weekend at Road America?
It's pretty funny actually, because so I leave tomorrow to head up to Wisconsin because we have a karting race at the go-kart track. Which, if you are heading to Road America, you've seen the go-kart track. It's right next to the Hurry Downs and the carousel. But we got a regional race this weekend, and then I'm going to drive back to Indy. And then drive back next weekend for the IndyCar race to Road America. And the weekend after the IndyCar race, there's a national karting race at Road America. So I have the next 3 weekends at Road America. I'm excited. I'm definitely going to go to Seepkins quite a few times.
Seepkins.
I'm going to come to Mid-Ohio in July with a full assortment of spotted cows. Like, you want a spotted cow, come find me in Mid-Ohio, baby. We're going to have them, and it's going to be a good time.
Seepkins, Tiki Bar. There's an ice cream shop there right off the beach up at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. So look for Kyle. So are you going to be the guy next week, IndyCar-wise, that has to hold David Land's microphone, or am I doing that? What's the plan coming up with D-Land overseas for the next couple of weeks?
So my plan is to basically make David Land videos myself. You know, he's not going to be there. I know the formula pretty well from working with him over the last 4 years. I mean, I've been on his hip at most races he's covered. So I'm just going to kind of take the opportunity to show up to the bullpen, ask my own questions, and upload my own videos in basically a David Land format. Because, you know, there's no point in doing that when David's there, right? Because he's got it. And usually I'm working with him, and him and I are discussing ideas and things. Anyways, I'm just not on the actual thing. So I might as well do it. It's going to be on my channel. So yeah, you want to check that out. Sometimes when I'm doing that, like when I went to the October test last year, I'll get some interviews that maybe David will use, maybe he won't, just for content for us to have, just kind of work as a unit. What are you going to be up to, Tony, next week? You're going to be at Road America. You're going to be at Gateway this weekend. Leo, what do you got planned?
Yeah, I got to figure out if I'm going to Gateway for the one-day show just on Sunday and maybe see the night Sunday night. You know, I'm in I guess we can just roll out with the punches here early. Not that they probably care, but I'm a little bit upset with IndyCar right now when you see the likes of other places that get to interview the winner, Alex Palou, and they get about 112 views on their YouTube page. Yet I kind of get the runaround, and then those same type of outlets, get one-on-ones with drivers and one-on-ones with the pole winner, and I get rushed to get 2 minutes with Schwartzman, even though it's still got 22,000 views. So I'm kind of in that camp now where, is it worth it to go to these bullpens? Because honestly, and I think we talked about this last week coming off of Detroit. You go to these bullpens, and it's like you've got Bruce Martin's area over here, and then you've got your national reporters, which includes our friend Eric Smith at IndyCar.com and Jenna Fryer and Nathan Brown. And then you come over and you got local TV, if it's Indy or whatever local TV channels, depending on the track that you're at. And then like they kind of put us, the digital creators or whatever they call us, all together, which, as you know, Kyle, because you do a great job of recording all those, is it basically becomes the Tony Donohue and the David Land show. You go on some of these websites of these people or these YouTube channels that are that are in these bullpens. It's basically a highlight reel of David and I. With that being said, I've also learned, and I love drivers. I love talking to them. I love interviewing them. They don't get the hits that they probably should. I've some of them do if you get a really good quote. And this is obviously we're talking outside of the 500. I think there'll be some excitement this weekend because you have a night race. You're back on an oval. This was a very racy oval, World Ride Technology Raceway a year ago. So you do have some excitement. You do have some storylines going in. But a lot of these bullpens, when you get this information, it's obsolete within 2-3 hours when they go on. You know, if you interview driver X and an hour later he's crashed, you can't put that out there. So I think that's my biggest. It's kind of tough.
I think that's my biggest kind of thing, because when we go to ask questions in the bullpen, like we can't walk up there and say, "How are you feeling going into this weekend? You feeling good? What are your championship like? How do you feel?" Like, because the broadcast is just immediately going to ask the drivers those questions immediately.
Yeah.
And also the drivers to those questions just generally give like a, yes, I'm feeling good. I feel very like just so for us to get anything like that we might be thinking, we kind of have to go and find them on our own.
Yeah.
Where like the only reason that's frustrating, because you think of it like, you know, oh yeah, big whoop, you got to go find the driver yourself and do some actual like boots on the ground. But like, again, when you look at Formula One, they have a bullpen set up and the drivers are mandated to go through the roundabout after every single on-track session, or else they get fined. Like it's just like there's a difference there. But I appreciate the bullpens, honestly, because it is something that, you know, predates, before I was in the media center, before I was covering the sport. Like when I first started, we didn't have bullpens. Like it was not a thing. So I'm glad they are a thing. I just think that the positioning of when they are could be different. At certain points. Which IMSA, by the way, back to Detroit a couple weeks ago, they just started doing bullpens, and they did it specifically in the middle of the day, and it was like a first time run. And the way they did it was they brought in all of the drivers who are going to be competing at Le Mans, which is crazy for IMSA to do that, but also like it's so cool. Like, yeah, like they're open like that, and I think it really went really well, and I think they're going to do it. But the important thing is they did it before practice, but then you could get into a whole new discussion when we talk about track time, because we've been talking about also as well off the air if IndyCar Fridays even matter. Why would you show up on a Friday? There's one session in the middle of the day, and then it's like, oh, okay. And then the sessions are even install laps and like boring stuff. Like so there's that whole discussion as well. Like it's a whole thing.
And they're not very organized. Let's just be honest here. They're not very organized. You have to hope that a driver comes over to you or is in a good mood. We've seen several drivers not be in good moods, walk over to the national media and talk to them and then leave. Now, to your point, yes, you, me, David, can walk up to a driver walking in through the pits or after a practice session and really get the information that we really want, really get the, okay. And what I do with that, a lot of what I do is I'll ask somebody off the record or I'll ask somebody privately just to kind of form my own opinion on what's going on who's going where or what a car is going to do. And I think the drivers like the fact that we do ask questions about the race, about the car. We're not asking them what their favorite superhero is or what their favorite cartoon character is, or if they were stranded on a desert island, what's the driver that they would want to have with them. There's people that do that, and that's fine. You guys will laugh at this. I think I'm a funny guy by nature. I like to joke and say some unfiltered stuff, which I can do, especially because it's so relaxing. It's a relaxed setting when we're talking to drivers that every once in a while I'll say shit or I'll say something that probably isn't professional, so to speak. But it ends up happening anyway. So yeah, I mean, we'll see with Gateway. It's one of those things where maybe it's worth it. Maybe it will be worth it there Saturday after qualifying. And then you do get a USAC race, which is always a lot of fun. But we'll see. I'm excited for a night race, Kyle, as I'm sure that you are as well. The track was very racy last year. If we did have a night race quasi at Gateway a few years ago because of the rain. What are your expectations for this race coming up Saturday, IndyCar-wise? The last 6 races at Gateway have either been won by Joseph Newgarden or Scott Dixon.
Yeah, I think there's very high expectations going into this weekend because of the race that we were given last year. I think when they, the short ovals were a bit of a concern, and we entered that last stretch where they added the upper elements to the front and rear wing and gave us more downforce. It just Gateway was, I think, the highlight to me. I mean, Milwaukee was great too, but like Gateway was so good. So many passes for the lead, so many comers and goers. It was like what ideally, I think, what I'd like to see out of a short oval race. And I think there's high expectations, especially once you change the time to be at night, because I think that was probably the only thing that was missing last year, was it going like fully into night. I mean, I think the expectations are very high, and everyone would be let down if this was a snoozer.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, this is a Sunday night race on national television. You're probably not competing too much on a Sunday night. I don't believe – I have to look at the schedule. I don't know if I think the NBA Finals pick back up on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe you have the Stanley Cup, but you have an opportunity to gain some new friends on Fox, have what we hope to be an exciting night race. Now, remember, I think it was 2012 or 2013, they moved that Texas race right after the 500 to a night race and put it on ABC, and it was a dud. Like Elio led like 98% of the race. But Father's Day, you get out the grill with dad and the family, and you cook out around 6, and you come inside to eat, you flip on the IndyCar race, and maybe you gain some new fans. No Stanley Cup, so that's Saturday. Thanks, AV79. So you have an opportunity here to bring in a new audience, to put up a big number, to show that you are what your Fox title says you are, the fastest motorsports in the world, or the fastest racing on the planet. You have an opportunity to display a really good race like we saw last year, with cooler temps, with better passing, and God forbid we get a little bit of drama, which would be nice, right? Maybe there's some tempers flying under the lights. Maybe we saw it last year, Joseph and Will Power, Joseph with the field gave the finger. Then, I think was there another wreck where somebody else got into it? It all runs together on the ovals. But you have an opportunity here to have some drama, have a good race, be on Fox, get over one. Is it too crazy to think that you can get over 1.5 million on a Sunday evening?
Crazy.
8:30 Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central. Maybe you get more fans to come out to the track. I've heard some things about whether or not there's going to be a lot of fans there or not. And I think a lot of that and the walk-up crowd that we will see depends on the weather. For people going, I think we have to understand and think, are we going to stay after if the race gets done at 10 or 10:30 and drive 5 hours back to Indy, or we're going to stay in St. Louis? That's my problem, I guess, and whatever fans coming from Indy. But bottom line, Kyle, a huge opportunity for IndyCar here to display what you are, to display why Fox brought you in, display a great race, a fast race, a competitive race. Can we please see some passes for the lead? 2-3 wide going into 1. It was an exciting race last year. I think you're right. There are huge expectations for this race coming up Sunday night.
Yeah, Sunday night prime time. I mean, there's everything on paper is perfect. And like you said, I hope the crowd's great. Because I remember I went to Gateway for the first time in 2019, which it came back in 17. And those first 2 to 3 years where they were selling out, because that was like the return of Gateway as a track because it sat dormant for a couple of years. That place sold out, was so cool. And for the last couple of years, I've been confused on like why it hasn't been, packed. It hasn't really been a packed show since COVID, and it's been kind of sad. And also NASCAR having a date there hasn't helped either. I hope being a June date, it actually being a night race. I mean, I kind of understood it why it wasn't packed when it was a day race, because if you've ever been to St. Louis in the heat of the day in June, it's ridiculous. Or in August, it was a terrible idea. But I mean, yeah, and I'm not paid by them. My buddy Chase Holden was doing a paid promotion, but I'm gonna shout it out just because I think it's such a cool promotion. Tony, I don't know if you heard about this, but they're selling 2 tickets with 2 hot dogs and 2 sodas for $60. I don't know if that I haven't heard of a better deal than that. Like that's freaking awesome.
Yeah,
I feel like everyone should take advantage
hard
of
to
that
beat
if you can. Like, so I mean,
And-
yeah, they're trying hard. I don't think there's any excuse for people not to show up. I hope it's great.
I'll say this about Worldwide Technology Raceway. They do a great job of promoting IndyCar racing. They do a great job of the huge fireworks display. If you make a weekend out of it, you get a 100-lap USAC Silver Crown race, which is awesome on that track, the high speeds.
Incredible.
If you make a weekend out of it, you obviously get an Indy NXT race, which we're going to talk about a little bit here. You're going to get a fireworks display afterwards. You can't beat Chase's deal, as mentioned. And they do a great job of promoting it. The only complaint that I ever have about Gateway, and I understand why, is they don't open up the seats in turns 1 and 2. Like, there's a huge grandstand. And I watched during COVID in 2020, they had that stand open. I think that's honestly the first time I actually ever met David Land. And that was just an awesome seat. But Gateway's fun. It's right before you get over the river into St. Louis. There's plenty of parking, plenty of things to do. I think they have a live concert going on. And I don't think it's going to be all too hot when they go green at 8 o'clock, which means we could see one hell of a show. So check out Chase Holden on social media. He has that covered for you. $60 for 2 tickets. Take the family, take dad, and get yourself some dogs.
Oh man.
So should be a good race.
I'm going to swing this in. So moving on, let's talk about the race. Let's talk about what's going to go on, because I want to shout out here Sky Warren, and this is what I wanted to say is with the using StreamYard, I can bring your comments onto the screen. So if you have any thoughts, any questions, and we want to get to them, you're now really a part of the show. But makes a great point, Lil Dave to win. So I think that's probably the first and major sticking point going into this weekend is Lil Dave is coming off a 2nd place at Indy, front row start at Detroit. I think all eyes are pretty much on him, wouldn't you say?
I think him and Santino Ferrucci, the Foyt drivers, both this weekend are going to be a force to be reckoned with. They're going to be 2 drivers that you're going to have to beat if you want to win this race. Malukas obviously had a 2nd and a 3rd here, 2 out of the last 3 years, and was battling up front last year before a crash in a fill-in position with Meyershank Racing. Santino has finished top 12 in 8 straight ovals. He's been good at Gateway. Those cars have been – I think Connor had a good run at Gateway a few years back in an AJ Foyt car. As mentioned, Dixon and Newgarden are your only winners over the last 6 races here. But I think we've been talking about the Foyt cars and David Malukas. This could be – I don't know, Kyle, if you would call it a coming out party for David Malukas. As you mentioned, runner-up at the 500 after circumstances, front row at Detroit. We've kind of been waiting for him to be, that next driver to win outside of the Big Four, outside of the McLaren, Penske, Ganassi, and Andretti stables. And I think Malukas and Ferrucci are going to – Santino told us last year, I like to go around the outside. I learned that driving a sprint car, driving a Chili Bowl. I'll go up top and make some moves. We saw that at Milwaukee last year when he finished 4th in both of those races. But, yeah, I think Malukas is going to be right there. I'd be interested to see, obviously, what Santino Ferrucci can do. And there's a lot of drivers. We talked about it last week. I know that you weren't here. A lot of drivers that the seats are starting to get warm. How about a guy like Nolan Siegel, who had a top 10 at St. Louis last year? He is in desperate need of a result inside of that number 6 McLaren Chevy. How about an Alexander Rossi who has not probably had it's been a consistent start with Ed Carpenter Racing, cracked the top 10 a few times, but Ed Carpenter finished second in this race 3 or 4 years ago. Is this the type of race, Kyle, that you feel, yeah, we may be sitting here a week from now talking about the usual suspects, McLaughlin, Newgarden, Palou, and Dixon, but I think of any of the races that we go to for the remainder of the year, this is the one where I think somebody that's maybe in the middle or outside of those top 4 can compete for a win.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you talk about Malukas, if this would be like a coming out party, it's complicated, right? Because he had 2 great results over the 2 years with Coyne at Gateway, and you could say it is because he had a year out last year, and because he had a great run at Gateway last year, because the Indy 500 is the first time really outside of Gateway that was like, oh wow, there he is. I think most impressive, the front row at Detroit, honestly, because those Foyt cars are not known to be that quick on the road courses. Granted, Santino got a pole last year, but I mean, that was the first time I think we've seen Lil Dave really do something crazy like that, and get onto the front row. It's complicated with the career path he's had, and looking forward, he could be on his way to a Penske seat now. So really, this year is about just getting results, but just here and there. I don't think consistency is really something that they can actually realistically get, but I think it's probably what they're hoping for. But I agree with you. I think it could be somebody outside of the top 4 or 5 that we normally expect. I think the big thing is Chevy going to get a win? Are they how far behind are they from the Hondas? Not only from a horsepower standpoint, but Andretti, Ganassi, they look great right now, and those any drivers out of those 2 stables look very hard to beat. How about a guy like Marcus Ericsson? He's really good on ovals, and he's probably pissed off. He's probably pissed off still about the penalty after Indy, and then he's probably even more pissed off that both of his teammates were on the podium at Detroit, and he was looking back at like 13th. So and that's also another warm seat as well. So I would look for Marcus as well.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, and you could look at Andretti Global as a whole, coming off of Nashville last year, where Kyle Kirkwood scored his first career oval pole. Colton Herta scored his first career oval win. This track kind of drives like a road course, just how much steering input you have, especially the sweeping turns 1 into turns 2, and it's so easy to make a mistake at Gateway and ruin your day or somebody else's day. You get up in the marbles, and next thing you know, you're out of room, you're in the wall. We've seen that multiple times. I mean, we saw Will Power 2 years ago off the pit road make a mistake and warm up and take out Marcus Ericsson. I'm with you on Ericsson. I mean, we talked about that possibly being a warm seat. Ray Hall has done okay at these tracks qualifying wise. Can they, I think they have 2 straight top 10 starts at Iowa, and I think they were in the top 10 last year. Maybe Graham was 11th in qualifying. But yeah, and then how about, this is a great point in the chat, Rinus VeeKay. Look, this is quasi the same car that just 2 years ago, as you mentioned, was on the podium with David Malukas. Is somebody like Michael Cannon, somebody that can actually, yeah, there it is. Yeah, Stymie, thanks. Is he somebody that can really take them to the next level? I think we kind of saw that a little bit at Detroit on a street course, with VeeKay qualifying inside of the top 10 and Jacob Abel really having his first complete weekend, I would say, in an IndyCar. Now we go to a short technical oval where aerodynamics are key. Can Michael Cannon bring Rinus VeeKay into it? It always seems like, Kyle, I think you'll agree with this, and I would love to know the chat's perspective on this. It always seems like there's somebody that finishes top 5, top 6 at Gateway that's almost like an upset. Linus Lundqvist last year finishes on the podium. Obviously, Malukas has had his runs. Connor Daly has had good runs here. So it always seems like there is somebody that maybe doesn't qualify as well, or somebody that normally isn't running for a top 5 spot is in contention for one.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of blanked on what you did. I was reading comments.
Well, there's always a driver that kind of is an upset battling for a top 5 spot at Gateway.
Yeah, and to the point on Michael Cannon, you think about when Santino Ferrucci stepped onto the scene, it was really that relationship between him and Michael Cannon at Gateway, where Ferrucci, had a bunch of really good. I mean, he should have won 2019. I think he was leading. Don't remember what happened there, but I mean, yeah, this is where Takuma Sato won in 2021.
Yep.
I was there for it. And then Ed Carpenter was second in but I wasn't like a photo finish. It was close. So I mean, this is the weird things happen here. Like you said though early at the start of the show, that Joseph Newgarden has been pretty dominant here. It's always a track where there's always someone in the top 5 lurking.
Yeah, and look, this is the second time they've gone there with the hybrids. This is the first track that they've gone to a second time with the hybrid. You're going to have some highline running, which Doug Bowles is going to have to put on his referee cap and look at the drivers that are not running the highline in that highline practice. If that ends up being the case, which is always interesting, the way that they kind of referee that. And they're going to park it. Well, okay, park me for that because that's fine. I don't really need to be out there anyway. So should be interesting. Jacob Abel's first oval coming up this weekend. Louis Foster's return. He won last year in Indy NXT. So a lot of testing went on today at Milwaukee between a couple different teams. I know Ray Hall was a part of that. Indy NXT. I'll share what I did yesterday real quick before we give some predictions on the race and talk about the F1 scheduling conflict.
So yesterday, a lot of comments about that. I was gonna put in there. We'll get to that later. We gotta save the juicy stuff for the end, folks. We can't.
So I was at the Iowa Speedway yesterday, where it was cold. This is probably the 12th time I've been to Iowa Speedway, and the first time I've literally been like shivering cold. Indy NXT had a test there, so a driver that I've been kind of working with through the ranks and spotting for, Evagoras Papasavas, had his first oval test. If you remember, he finished second in the Indy NXT race down at Barber, and we ran 61 laps before crashing. It was a tough day for HMB, although Josh Pearson led the overall times, but Evagoras crashed, and then Tommy Smith crashed, and a lot of people say about HMD, like, there are too many cars and there's too many people. I've not been a part of a lot of teams, but I've been a part of a lot of situations. And HMD is one of the most organized teams from top to bottom. Everybody knows everybody, all the drivers helping out. And so I was in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, for about 61 laps yesterday. Before Evagoras crashed. But I think we could, we talk about how good the IndyCar race is going to be this weekend. Right before that, be sure to turn into Indy NXT, because you've got Dennis Hogger on his first ever oval dominating the championship right now. Only one other driver, his teammate Lockie Hughes, has won. I think this is a race coming up this weekend that favors those drivers that have been there and done it on an oval. I'm talking the Kyle Colletts. I'm talking the second-year, third-year drivers, Miles Rowe, who was fast in the test yesterday. I think it's going to be there. So a lot of those second-year Indy NXT drivers, I think, can do it coming up this weekend. All right, let's get to it, and then we'll come back for some predictions. The Indianapolis 500. We know it's usually the most watched race on that super weekend, so to speak, with the Triple Crown between the Coca-Cola 600 and Monaco. But it was announced today, Kyle, that the 2026 schedule will see the Canadian Grand Prix at Montreal during the Indianapolis 500 on Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. Does this, Kyle, take away from the Indianapolis 500? Does it eventually take away from the ratings? And what are your overall thoughts on F1 trying to grab a piece of that Memorial Day Sunday pie?
I think it's arrogant on F1's behalf. I think is a series that an organization in the States that has a lot of people who point at it as a very elitist and very I think it's honestly a poor move. It's arrogant. It's very confident, overconfident in the ratings they've had in the US and in North America. And I think I agreed with something Jeff Gluck said today, that it's very reminiscent of a 2005 NASCAR move, where they just do something in no regard to other motorsports in America.
Yep.
Yeah, it's one thing when you put a race on the same day in another continent, that's going to be on air in the morning here. I mean, if they understood racing fans and people who watch racing, they would understand that in their market in North America, that they're actually, like, Monaco being in the morning was awesome. Like, people here look for, I remember I looked forward to that when I was a kid. Like, that's just been a thing, a staple here in the US. You wake up and watch Monaco, you watch Indy 500, then you watch the Coke 600. You know, I saw this, and my first reaction was, yeah, they know what they're doing. Number one, they did not do this and say, oh, the Indy 500 is on that day. No, the Indy 500 has had Memorial Day for the entirety of its existence, which predates all of these racing series by 50 years. So the Indy 500 has claimed this date, and throughout its history has had a racing series go, oh, we're better than you. We're going to put a race on that has 100 more miles. How'd that work out? And now F1's going to go on the same time in the same continent. Let's see how that works out for him. Because I saw that and I said, that means war. That's not cool. I don't think people are going to like that very much. I think it's a good time for IndyCar to kind of take a stand here for all the people who read this and say, oh, that wasn't very cool. I really liked, like, any general racing fans. Now, people in the US who are F1 fans and F1 fans only aren't going to do this. They're not going to care. They won't watch the Indy 500 anyways. But anyone who watched the Monaco to Indy 500, you know, and is a racing fan and enjoys both series, I hope this is a moment for you to kind of look at this and say, oh, that's not cool, and kind of look at which series actually cares about racing fans more, right? You know, which series is actually more, you know, is actually wants you to go to their races in a non-greedy way. I think the best way to put that.
Yeah, somebody said it only clashes every 5 years, which obviously it'll be next year. I think you put it pretty well in saying that it's very arrogant of them. I think that they look at an opportunity to say, well, our ratings in the United States routinely beat IndyCar besides the Indianapolis 500. So how do we dip into that? Well, let's just run a race right up against the Indianapolis 500. I hope it flops for them. I hope that people continue to watch the Indianapolis 500 or come home and watch it on the replay if they attend the race. But yeah, I think it's a very big fish in a little pond type of move, but it's F1 and they do have the ability to do that. A couple things that are coming up in the chat. So Saturday's schedule from Worldwide Technology Raceway, 4:45 to 5 is IndyCar Highline Practice Group 1. Obviously, that's after qualifying. That is going to lay some rubber down. And then Session 2 is after that with the rest of the field before the final practice and before the Cracker concert, if anybody's interested in that. So what that does is you are basically given scrub tires to go up, and Firestone provides those tires to go up, and maybe not 100% throttle, but 70-75% throttle to lay some rubber down to bring some grip back to that track. Now, if it rains overnight, that obviously becomes obsolete. We've seen that. And we also have seen where drivers have complained that some drivers do it and some drivers don't. And last year, I think a couple drivers, I think Rossi might have been one of them, was parked due to the fact that he was not up on that second groove on that high line during the high line practice. So if you're going to mandate every driver go out there and do that, you have to make the penalty severe that they go out and do that. Whether you take away maybe pit box selection, maybe you take away some points, maybe it's I don't know, monetary fines to me just really don't do anything, especially when it's a team like Penske or Ganassi or McLaren getting fined. Like, okay, cool, great. We'll grab that out of the couch cushions and send it right over to you. So I think we need to have a harsh enough penalty to where, yes, every driver is going to go up and be a part of that high line. And I understand why drivers don't want to do that. They don't want to risk their race car, especially 24 hours before they go green. Yeah, maybe they take us away a set of tires. Maybe it's a grid penalty. Maybe it's a 6th position grid penalty if you're not going up in that high line. But yeah, back to the Formula One. I know we're kind of hopping around here. Just very arrogant. I think is a great way to put it. And to me, Kyle, I hope it flops.
I think this was an interesting comment from Josh. IndyCar won't win a war against F1. That's the problem. Now, that's the thing, is IndyCar won't win a war against F1. That's fact. That is fair. The Indy 500, on the other hand, I think trying to compete with the Indy 500 in North America is insane. That's an insane, like, to go against a race that has such a long-standing tradition of, like, we got 7.5 million viewers this year, and TV rating is our biggest worry. Like, the marketing and the love behind the Indy 500 is so strong right now. It's one of the, honestly, like, the strongest things I've ever seen in sports, that like, to try to look at that and say, yeah, we need to take some of that. We need to try and diminish that down is kind of, I think it's crazy. Especially, like, if you look at the schedule, there's a week gap. There's a week or a couple week gap there in May where they didn't have to do this. This was not we have to put it on this date type of thing. It was definitely on purpose. And I think that's the fact that it was on purpose is what doesn't sit right. And you're right. IndyCar does not have the money or the technology, or even, the age of fan base to go against F1. But I mean, the Indy 500, on the other hand, I don't think they can touch it.
Yeah, I think to Josh's point, the battle that IndyCar is always going to win is the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah.
The war they're not going to win is consistently beating Formula One. And I think, if I wish David Land was here right now, because he'd probably jump up, clap, and start bowing to me. We have this situation with Kyle Larson, or maybe any other driver that wants to run the double. Just seems like the timing can't line up. And it seems like if you get any bit of moisture on the racetrack or any weather to interfere with it, it kind of takes it away. The Indianapolis 500 used to start at 11:15 a.m. It was drivers to your cars at like 10:50. 11 a.m. was the parade laps, and then you went green at 11:10, 11:15. Here's an opportunity to, and I know you don't want to make that move to make it look like you're doing that because Formula One is going to be airing at the same time, but I wouldn't mind an 11 a.m. Indianapolis 500 start. Gives you some more wiggle room with the weather, opens up the opportunity of having more eyes on your sport with maybe somebody like a Kyle Larson or a Christopher Bell or somebody in NASCAR having that intrigue to want to come over and run the double and having just more time to do it. So maybe IndyCar in the future would like to look at the Indianapolis 500 being moved up to 11 a.m. I mean, hell, Kyle, we're already there anyway. I mean, everybody gets there between 6 and 8 a.m.
We are. Yeah, we have this debate often, I think, in the IndyCar fan base of when the Indy 500 should start. Because after 24, we had the debate of, well, shit, that was so good. Should we just move it later now? It's a toss-up. I mean, I think it should start earlier. We're already there. And we've kind of pushed it back to like 12:45, 1 o'clock, like. And they did it in such an unceremonious, like they tried to, like, they've just been, I feel like every year it's been like 15 minutes up. They're just trying to, like, tell it like, oh, we want this to start later, but we're not going to try and piss you off because it's always been a noon start. I think that's the beauty is when you look at the Indy 500, and if you've been going for only even 2 years, hey, noon, that's when we start. But
that wasn't always the case.
It goes both ways.
That wasn't always it was 11:15 all the way up until somebody in the chat can tell me. Maybe Killsdonk would know. I think he's overseas, but I think the Indianapolis 500 up to probably I think when the NBC contract took over, maybe in 2019, I thought it was an 11 a.m. start pretty consistently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does it make it harder for the? Somebody said it makes it harder. Somebody says it makes it harder for the West Coast, but when you look,
that's true.
But if you look at the ratings and in the top 10 markets, there's never a West Coast market. It's not like LA is your 5th best market. It's not like San Francisco is your 8th best market, or Seattle or Portland are in your top 10. So worrying about that on the West Coast, how many fans has that really taken away? 75,000 to 100,000 tops, which I think maybe coming out of my mouth seems like a little bit too much. So I don't know. I don't mind the 11:15 start. Gives you a lot more wiggle room for weather, and if somebody does want to run the double, look, if they come out and do it, it's going to look like they're doing it because they're going up against F1. It's going to look like they're doing it because they want to accommodate a NASCAR driver. But you know what? There was a lot of hype the last 2 years, despite the fact that the results weren't up to par around Kyle Larson, and I think it did bring in a NASCAR audience that maybe would tune in for a little bit, but now they certainly wanted to tune in to see what one of their quote-unquote drivers was doing. So maybe in the future we see 11.
I think they were going to tune in anyways. That's the thing. The Larson bump to me only took effect throughout the month. Like I think that only probably helped us out in the practice days. You know what I mean? I feel like in the ratings, I feel like in the race, I feel like the bump would be higher if remember when Fernando Alonso came. I feel like that would be a bigger bump because then you'd get an international audience. But I think the people that watched for Larson were watching anyways. I remember when I went to the Coke 600 in 2010, you know, God bless me, went to the Coke 600 before I ever went to the Indy 500. I'm sorry, guys. But they were playing the Indy 500 on the damn Jumbotron in the track and in all of the souvenir haulers. So I mean, they're watching, they pay attention. I think they were watching anyways.
If people are going to watch, they're going to watch whether it's a 11 a.m. start or 8 a.m. start their time. I know that IndyCar is nowhere near the level of the NFL or even college football, because we see a lot of crazy different times with the Big Ten schedule, because you've got UCLA and USC playing Rutgers at 11 p.m. at night or 10 a.m. if they're on the East Coast. If you want to tune in to the Indianapolis 500, you're going to tune in to the Indianapolis 500. I think there was a spike, more so last year with Kyle Larson, because I think we saw Raleigh inside of the top 7 on the ratings last year. I'll have to go back and look at that. But here we are in June, race week, talking about what time the Indianapolis 500 should air. And Kyle, I think it's a great time to transition to a couple dude bro sources that we kind of touched on last week. And we talked about warm seats, and we talked about Nolan Siegel, and it was talked about whether or not he brought money to the deal with McLaren. Obviously, his dad is very well off. His dad has ownership. I learned this in investment in Chime, which is the bank that I use, some pretty major companies. And I was with somebody that I think would know, and they also told me that there was no money, which obviously, you know, there's a part of me that is a media person, so they probably don't want to get that out. So with that being said, there has been some changes inside of Prema, inside of the walls of Prema. We are going to see, so Pierce and Renee were the two kind of head of the IndyCar realm. We're going to see a lot more of Pierce and a lot less of Renee. The quote I was told is Renee's basically been told to stay home, which is very interesting. And there was a point, and we kind of tiptoed around this and started hearing from multiple sources in May that after spending millions of dollars on a hospitality suite that didn't get used until, I think, Carb Day and race day, and going over a budget of $30 million, that there was some questions about whether or not this team was going to be on the grid come Detroit. And it got to the point where even I was told going into Indianapolis 500 qualifying weekend, look into that for what you want, that It was done. It was, barring a huge sponsor or something, it was done. Schwartzman goes and puts it on the poll. There's new hype around the team, new team. Eyes are on the 83, even though Colin Eilot, I think, started, 22nd. But that's where some more dude bro comes in. There is rumors that Colin Eilot could possibly be on the hot seat. And I think that would be, if it were to happen, this is my opinion, Tony Donohue's opinion, it would be a mutual parting of the ways. I think Colin Eilot has a lot of talent. I think he deserves to be an IndyCar. I think he's a really good driver. But you have to be in the right situation. You have to be on a team that feels the same. And the rumor that I heard was that there is interest in other drivers inside of Prema. And
As
now,
there should be.
as there should be, and the name Yuri Vips came up to me in conversation about somebody that they could be looking at for the 2026 season. Now, I'm assuming you can't run 3 cars, although, I know we talked about this last week about running outside of the leader circle, but these cars are obsolete more than likely at the end of next year or the year after. So you may as well start using them. You may as well start renting them out or loaning them out, right? Like, I hate to say it, but the 2011 IndyCar race in Vegas had 34 cars because those cars were show cars October 12th, the day after the race, or October 17th, the day after the race. And that's what these cars more than likely are going to be. So why not start pulling them up? Somebody asked about Vips. What about Teo? As mentioned last week on the show, David Land and I were with Simon and Teo Pourchaire on the grid at the Indianapolis 500. Teo's goal is to be back into IndyCar by next year. We shall see. But that is the latest dude bro rumors.
Here's the other stupid part is, like Sky says, with the charters, even if Prema did put in an extra car, you'd be racing to put one car out of the show every week. Another reason why the charters suck. It sucks. That is a really good point. I think most of the 2011 season, there were a lot of entries that were there because everyone was like, yeah, we have these chassis, let's just go. Yeah. Which with the freaking charters, we're probably not going to get that, honestly. But there is a chance that we'll get some racing into some races, I guess. But yeah,
I'll say this.
I think it makes sense that Callum is leaving or would leave Prema. I don't think that's been a good combination. And I think as well, it's not a good look when, I think Robert Schwartzman is actually a really good driver. I think has just that raw speed. And because there's points where even if the Prema car is not good, he'll put down a lap time on a single lap that's just really competitive for the equipment he's in. And I think IndyCar, we do a really bad job at rating some of these drivers. I think the teams especially, and I think we see that specifically with Rinus VeeKay. And we don't look at the equipment they're driving because we think it's a spec series. We think that they, they're working with what everyone else is working with. Even if the car is bad, Rinus VeeKay goes to a coin car, which has been nowhere for the last 2 years, and puts it consistently in the top 10. So I think Callum's a guy who, I agree with you. I think he's talented. I think he deserves a shot. He showed it a bit with McLaren last year, but I don't think he's really been given the proper, time with a big team or the equipment on a full-time scale. So, I mean, that makes sense. But I think they also have to think about, what if you lose Schwartzman?
I don't, unless it's a major offer from a major team, Schwartzman's not going anywhere. I was told this directly in a conversation with multiple people that I've had over the last couple of days, is that Schwartzman is like a child to Prema, basically. It's like the son that they never had. So I would be shocked if at least next year Schwartzman wasn't back with Prema. I think he definitely will be, and I think there is the money there to prove that, and they want to continue to grow with him. But there is a level of okay, wait a minute, if there is some kind of treatment of that for Schwartzman, is Ilott getting the second hand type stuff, and that's something that I think will be determined. As far as the charters and driving and entering extra cars next year, which I think we've seen Ray Hall last year enter 2 or 3 races towards the end of the year. I think we're going to see some changes, some nullifications of the charters and what that means, who gets them. What it means if you do want to run an extra car outside of that, because we talked about this last week with McLaren. Do you run a car outside of that? More than likely, you're probably going to make it into the show. But if you were to run a Will Power outside of that, and somebody like Don Cusick, who's been very much rumored, we talked about it here first last week, and there was an article this past weekend that, of course, miraculously comes out as soon as David Land and I start talking about things. Miraculously, other people go poking around and snooping around for articles. Could you possibly run something outside of the charter system to where it's fully funded, and a driver like Will Power is plenty capable of beating 1 or 2 other drivers to get into the show? But I still think we'll see a lot of nullifications, I guess would be the term for that. Speaking of Will Power, there was a bogus report this past weekend on the X. I think I probably fell for it a little bit, and some other people had as well.
I think everyone does.
Yeah. So
the daily everyone got downforwarded, and they finally did an IndyCar one, and they used our pal David as the source, which I thought was hilarious. I mean, it's genius on their part, because they trick people in NASCAR almost every day. So they got the IndyCar people, and they got the IndyCar people good. Like, I think, because it's probably, it was smart. It was smart on their behalf as a parody account. But it's not confirmed that David Malukas is going to Penske next year and that Will Power is retiring. It's not confirmed. They did their homework too, because that's like that's a rumor. That's a thing that might, could
somebody
happen.
was watching the show last week. There is 100% no doubt. The wording, the timing. David Land and I discussed last week about the rumor of Malukas going to the 12 and what Will Power would do, and how there is some mutual interest between McLaren and Will Power, which would make a lot of sense. David's exact quote on the show last week was he doesn't see a way that Power is back with Penske, which could possibly be true. I think the conversations will start heating up here over the next couple of weeks, and we really won't know anything concrete until August 1st. That seems to be like the free agency date, so to speak. But yeah, so when I used to work in radio, there used to be instead of Adam Schefter on Twitter, it was a damn Schefter, and they would you would have to mute and block that thing and turn your notifications on, so you wouldn't get duped.
I appreciate the parody accounts, because it's like April Fools every day. There's got to be something out there that keeps you on your toes to fact check things, right? There has to you should read something and make sure that the person that said it is correct. I appreciate it. But it was funny because David is in France. They knew David was in France. I had to send him a little text over Twitter and say, "Hey man, I know you're in France, but you should say something, because all the IndyCar fan base are unaware of what getting downforwarded means, and they got. So you should say something like, hey, I didn't say this." Because then they're going to point at you, buddy.
So make sure that you are deleting or blocking the downforwards. Somebody said that they enjoyed that Mike Joy got downforwarded. Somebody says that we need to form our own media group. Well, we appreciate that. This show is well on the way to that. So if you like it, share it, comment, and subscribe here on YouTube. We are well over 1,400 subscribers, trying to grow that number here every Tuesday, talking all things IndyCar, NASCAR, Formula One, and, of course, interacting with you here on the Unverified YouTube channel. All right, Kyle, it's time for some predictions coming up this weekend at Gateway. Can anybody knock off Joseph Newgarden, or does Joseph Newgarden check the field and create some drama for us?
I think everyone's heart is saying the same thing, that we want to see David Malukas win. I think that's everybody's heart is telling them. But I mean, honestly, this would be the moment that Joseph Newgarden just, I mean, he doesn't have a win yet this year. Obviously, there's only 2 winners, but he doesn't have a win. Penske's looked kind of tough, tough in a bad way and not in a good way like they normally are. I think this could be it. I think this could be the Joseph Newgarden win. It could be the comeback. I like Daly on the podium. I'm interested in what Connor Daly does because they have a good oval package, obviously. But I think Newgarden wins, man. And then I think the secondary, I mean, Lil Dave W, we want it. That's, I think, probably your dark horse sleeper. And then also in the back of your head, like something, because I'm going to be at Road America, the thing I'm going to be looking forward is where does Alex Palou land at Gateway? Because, I mean, first oval win at Indy. I always poke fun at Tony for how many times in the show he mentions that drivers who do and don't have oval wins and and the importance of that. And I think Palou having an oval win, I think that will help him. But also, you know, wrecked out of Detroit, he finally has bad momentum going into this week. So I think, you know, because I'm going to Road America, I'm interested in how he does, because Road America is definitely a place that he's going to come in and just whoop everybody. So we gotta be looking at how Palou's momentum is. But yeah, I think Newgarden gets it done. I think Chevy finally gets it, and Lil Dave is my sleeper.
I'm going to go with, and I think Nuke Media mentioned this as well, I'm going to go with 3 guys that I feel should and are pissed off right now. And number 1 on that list is Scott McLaughlin. He was obviously frustrated, punting Nolan last week, got into a Twitter beef back and forth with Tony Kanaan. He obviously had a crap month of May, probably would have been on the pole and in contention for the 500. Instead, ends up upside down on pole day and ends up on the inside wall going into turn 1 on the warm-up lap. I think Scotty McLaughlin, who has an IndyCar oval win under his belt now, I think McLaughlin is going to be in contention for the win. He's going to be my pick. I think right there with him, somebody who won it on strategy a few years ago and is pissed off, I think, because of the success that his teammate has, is Scott Dixon. I think Scott Dixon should be motivated to win this race. I think they can play the right fuel strategy card, as they seem to always do, him and Mike Hull. So I think Dixon is going to be right there as well. And I think, as mentioned, Marcus Ericsson should be pissed off. He did not have a good Detroit while both of his teammates qualified on pole and ended up on the podium. He was disqualified from the Indianapolis 500. He hasn't had the best luck at Gateway. And what an opportune time to turn things around and shut down some of those rumors that are starting to circulate about his future at Andretti Global, despite the fact that he is under contract for the 2026 season. I think it would be a big weekend and a big statement if Marcus Ericsson could win or put it on the podium coming up on Sunday on Fox just after 8 o'clock Eastern time. Kyle, I don't believe David is back next week either, correct?
No, so it's gonna be me and you yapping after Gateway I mean, we're pretty much going into Road America, Tony, on our own. We are lone wolves, no Dave.
Here's what I'm going to do. You're way more technically savvy than I am. Here's what I'm going to do, because I'm a little bit upset with IndyCar and not getting a Palou interview. We talked about that last week, and then seeing other outlets and sites and radio stations getting less than 150 hits on those things. I am going to reach out to IndyCar and say, the winner of your race on Sunday is more than welcome to be a guest on Unverified for 30 minutes to recap and look forward. We're going to put the ball in IndyCar's court to put the winner of your race in Gateway heading into Road America on this show. Let's see if we can get it done. I hope it happens. If not, it's going to be an absolute rip fest. An absolute rip fest during the Dude Bro Sources next week on this show. I can guarantee you that, because I spent some time with my family this weekend because my nephew graduated high school, and I was just pulled up YouTube and was watching, McLaughlin and Pato and Joseph do recaps and do great stuff. And I just was I just searched Indy 500 and I saw a couple interviews with Alex Palou, and I thought to myself, they're getting it over me. What am I doing wrong? I got 5 million views in the month of May. What else do you want me to do? All I'm asking for is 5 minutes. I don't go long, 10 minutes at the most. I'll get right to it. I'll be on time. I'll be prompt. So IndyCar, get the winner of Gateway Worldwide Technology Raceway on this show next week. Promote going into Road America, and let's make it happen. Kyle, your Pacers predictions, they're 1-1 in the series. The NBA Finals comes home to Indy tomorrow night.
Pacers in 6. And I have a buddy, so it would work out for us, not for our nerves and anxiety. I mean, I'm looking at the schedule because like I'll be in Wisconsin for most of the series. I just bought a TJ McConnell jersey. So I'm ready to go to Wisconsin and go to Siebkins wearing that and have my fun up there because unfortunately I won't be in the city. So I was looking at the schedule, and if it goes to Game 7, it's like Sunday of IndyCar Road America. So if there like a parade were to happen, knock on wood, we would be able to be back in time for that, right? We would be like it'd be kind of good timing for us. And I have a buddy coming, staying in Indy with me, and I told him I was like, you have to be a Pacers fan now, and you have to kind of want it to go to 7 because you'd be there for the parade, buddy. Like Pacers in 6. So I think we're gonna give one up probably in one of the next 2 home. I think it's gonna go 1-1 in the next 2-game home series. I think we'll bring it home. I think it'll be in 6.
Thanks everybody for watching here tonight on Unverified. Don't forget to subscribe. Or if you're cruising with MSC and says exactly how to make me unsubscribe, what a waste of time. Well, hey, thanks for spending that time to send a chat here via the YouTube stream. Thanks to everybody who interacted tonight. Go Pacers tomorrow. If you're at Gateway on Sunday throughout the paddock, or if you see me, say hello. Can't wait for that race under the lights. Thank you guys for your support. Like and subscribe. Check out Kyle on all of his social media channels. Kyle Cuthbertson, Racing Nation TV. Unverified on Instagram. Tony D. Indy on X. We'll be back next week, and maybe we'll get a little update from what David Land's up to as well. I know he'll have some stuff on his YouTube channel via. I think he is going to talk to Teo Porcher, so maybe
I want to give David a little bit of crap right now because our buddy Chris, who commented on the chat earlier, GT Rain, he did his podcast from France tonight. So David totally could have been with us.
What time is it there? Is it out there? Is it 8 hours? Is it 8 hours?
I don't know if we could have. He did his show at like 6, so if David really wanted to, if David had, he could have said, "Hey guys, can we do the show at 6?" But no, he's got to get his beauty sleep in France. Here's
some behind the curtain information for the fans watching. David Land doesn't sleep. This dude will be up at 2 a.m. This dude will be up at 6 a.m. This dude will be like, "Oh man, sorry, I was sleeping from 10 a.m. to 1 because I was up all night watching stuff, playing video games." So David Land could have been on here today. Maybe we'll get him for a little bit next week. Let's hope for the winner from St. Louis on the show next week. I'm going to speak it into existence. We're going to have some fun. Thank you for watching Unverified. Like and subscribe. We'll be back next week, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, right here on Unverified YouTube channel.
See you all then.